Shoot the gap. Week 2, everybody. I know it's not your typical Wednesday night. It is Friday night talk. Hollywood Titan, Nate Markham. Get ready. Well, it's been longer than the 7-day hiatus I typically have from you. It's 9 days. I was starting to miss our conversation. Luckily, it's just you and I. We don't have Jorge to muddy up, our little, fantasy football IDP talk time. And if you're listening,
about time we got rid of him.
I think it took a long time, but luckily, the viewers have spoken. At least that's what we're going to say when he asks. We're going to say that's what we've been hearing. Constant. Exactly. People are like, man, just you two. That's plenty. It's all we need. We know that is that's not the truth, but the truth is it's another week. Hopefully we can deliver some more information. One thing, JJ, he started Hassan Reddick both weeks. It's killing me. That's the hard thing with Reddick is it's really hard to take away and not recommend starting Hassan Reddick just from number one, the draft capital you've invested, and two, that defensive line for Philly, there will be a different star each week for the most part. So far, it's been Josh Sweat, I believe, in my opinion, but Hassan Reddick is due. I think that we're seeing just they're trying to bring it all together.
I agree, and that defense is so loaded on the front defensive line. Like you said, every week somebody new is going to be doing something, being the big play.
Yeah, I thought that it would be Reddick more so than anybody else. I'm pretty high invested in Josh Sweat, and I think, but there's not a shocking scenario week in and week out where Sweat has 2 tackles and no sacks and kills you. But before we get going, obviously, as with every week, what do you think of that, huh? Pretty fancy. Production quality's gone up a little bit. Yep, that was actually there's plenty of injury news across the IDP front. Number one, I don't know if it's first and foremost, but I think the one that really does suck, Cameron Hayward, potentially out up to 8 weeks. It's a massive blow to Pittsburgh's front line. What do you think the impact on TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith is without Cameron Hayward?
I think it's going to be pretty significant, right?
Yeah.
He does a lot of stuff that don't go in the box score, or at least not for him, right? Eating blockers or, changing back running lanes or whatever it is he's doing. And he's been there forever, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in fantasy, if you've got him, he's probably a DE too, right? Because of his age. Yep. I think he's a little closer to DE1, but if you're in redraft, it's a huge loss for you. You're not really sticking him on IR because by the time he comes back, his season's probably going to be about over for you, or at least close.
Mm-hmm.
So, for TJ Watt, man, I think it lets teams allow to focus on them a little more, right? Yeah. Not that they wasn't doing it before, but now you got somebody that was doing a lot of unsung stuff. Now he's gone, and they're going to be on it. So I don't think it hurts enough in fantasy to really worry, but if you've got him, of course it hurts.
Yeah, and I don't see a name that really of anybody that's going to step up and fill that spot well. It's just they weren't able to address that interior defensive line. Isaiah Loudermilk, that's a name that we joke around because from last year in the league that we all did, he was an auto draft, and so we collectively watched him, get a tackle here and there. But Armon Watts, Keanu Benton, rookie, might see an increase of snaps. But yeah, I think across the board it hurts not only those two. I think it hurts Cole Holcomb. I think Quan Alexander, who is a name that we can talk about in a little bit. Landon Roberts. Everybody, there's ancillary step down effects that we tend to forget about as injuries like this start to mount. Other injuries across the board. The list is pretty large. Some of the major ones that I'll touch on: Quay Walker in concussion protocol, Troy Anderson concussion protocol. Troy Anderson is a unique one, because do you think that Caden Ellis steps into his role, or Caden Ellis occupies his singular role that he had, which they're very similar, but where do you put Caden Ellis this week as a result?
I think he kind of steps into Anderson's, right? I mean, they don't have anybody else, so maybe
you don't
it's
have
a
to
mix
answer that yet.
Actually.
Yeah, you could, because I want to talk about him a little bit later too, and I'll get your opinion then. Joe, talk about the Chargers and banged up, man. Joey Bosa's questionable. I think he'll play.
Imagine that, a Bosa being hurt.
Yeah, shocker, right? I know. I mean, it only took about 57 snaps for him to get there. But Eric Kendricks is a big loss. His hamstring is acting up. He's doubtful. Most likely won't play. Him and Dion Henley, both at linebacker for the Chargers. I think that probably means Kenneth Murray is going to inherit a really, really large role. But is there anybody else with the Chargers that you even want to consider? We joked earlier about, Nick Neiman, but they're extremely shallow at linebacker as well.
Well, it tells me that I'm glad I've got a lot of Derwin James on my team.
Yes, it does. Holy hell. Derwin James, for a team, in a matchup that should stay on the ground, Derwin James could have just a monster. He's already defensive back 1. I mean, I don't think there's anybody really not putting him at the 1. This just solidifies if you have I don't know what the tackle props are for him. I would like to see it. My guess is they're pretty juicy, pretty high up. I'm assuming with these losses, but it's hard to say exactly.
Find it while you're talking.
Yeah, you keep doing that. So then, last night we lost Reed Blankenship, James Bradbury. Donovan Wilson is still doubtful. Again, he got in a couple limited practices, but that calf is really is angry at him. So I don't think that we'll see him play. Azeez Ojulari is doubtful for the Giants. That's I think a game you can rest him against Arizona. There's not too much need for Ojulari there. I think that that's a safe rest. On the IR spot, Kyler Gordon went on the IR for the Bears, slot receiver or slot corner, who I had high hopes for. I don't know about you, but I thought from a quarterback only or quarterback necessary league, he was going to be a guy that I was going to start to plug up just because of those box snaps. You think that's a significant loss, or is it just kind of it's
I was kind of with you. I was kind of had high hopes for him, and it's just not panned out. And he's still young enough to where it could, but the fact that they drafted Tyreek Stevenson, and that kind of puts the writing on the wall a little bit. So,
yeah, and that's a great point. You've talked about Tyreek Stevenson now a couple times, and I paid more attention as a result for sure. Jamal Adams is out again this week. Another big loss for Seattle. As I said, the aforementioned Troy Anderson's out. Frank Clark is out. Shocker. Frank Clark is missing time. I'm not shocked by that one bit. Tampa Bay Carlton Davis is out, amongst the secondary. Again, there's ancillary effects and how that can trickle down. In Tennessee, Christian Fulton and Amani Hooker both out this week. I don't know if that's super significant, but I mean, the more players you have across the defense out, maybe that means they're going to be on the field a little bit longer for the other pieces across Tennessee. There's always that chance, right?
Yeah. It's going to hurt not having Hooker there, because I think he's like the perfect complement to Byard, right?
I do too.
Byard's like kind of the Derwin James pretty much. I mean, he can kind of do anything. He can cover, he can play run support, free safety, whatever you can do. So I think Hooker's more of the traditional type of a safety, but I think they go together so well. But so it's going to hurt missing him. Fulton, I don't think that's going to be anything, because he's not played a whole lot anyway, right? Him and Caleb Farley and the whole freaking mess of them. It pisses me off with the damn corner shit. Sorry, you caught me on a Friday night rant here.
No. So that's a good rant to have. We want rants. How about instead of ranting,
7.5 is the over under for James, by the way.
I think that's an over that I'm happy to take.
I'd smash it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Minus 115, so it's not terribly bad.
You're not gonna make a bunch of money, but you know what? Parlay that with the Caden Ellis over, I think 5.5 tackles, I think is what I saw, 6.5 maybe, and you can start winning some money. JJ wants to know, is Denzel Perryman a must start this week? I'll let you answer that first and foremost. We saw plenty of increased snaps. I think he was the leader, even over Christian Harris, against an Indianapolis team that, honestly, you know what? They were a pass-first team. I don't know if they're going to go to the run, but they do get Zach Moss most likely back, so maybe they'll increase the rushing attack. I think the snaps, obviously, JJ, depending upon the depth of your league, I hate to use the word must start because I'm not the biggest Denzel Perryman fan, but he is firmly in my my LB2 conversation. So I would say
put him as an LB2, man. Definitely. Yeah. And I would kind of say he is a must start, unless you're just in a basic league where you're starting one or two linebackers. Most of us, we're playing 3, 4, sometimes up to like 5, 6, 7 starting linebackers in crazy leagues. So I would think he's kind of a must start. 95% of the snaps last week, 61 overall, and 11 tackles, 6 solos, a TFL.
When he's on the field,
you can get that from him. I think he's a must start.
He's always productive. With snaps comes production. Let's answer one more for him. Zadarius Smith or Alex Highsmith on Monday? Side you lean.
Oh, let's see. Who does Baltimore have?
Well,
they got Cincinnati.
Who? No, Zadarius Smith. Who cares?
Oh, Cleveland. Zadarius.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland. They played the Steelers. Okay.
Correct. They play each other Monday night. Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, Highsmith. Oh, yeah. I'm taking Zadarius.
I am too. I think we just saw that's one of the questions I actually had is when looking at the Pittsburgh just offensive line, I don't think they got any better. There was a lot of talk about them blowing up. Now, the one person who obviously has gotten some attention is their tight end, Darnell Washington. He had some pretty good stands. He looked like he was a good actual pass blocking tight end, maybe one of the better ones I've seen as a rookie, especially. But we talked earlier and we said, this Cameron Hayward loss have some trickle-down effects. And I think Alex Highsmith will probably be the loser more so than TJ Watt. There is one thing to consider, is that Cleveland has some injuries across that offensive line. There are some concerns there, but I still have Zadarius quite a bit higher. And I think that JJ, you listen enough to this. I don't like Alex Highsmith. I'm sorry. I'm probably the biggest Highsmith hater right now.
I think what he's been doing, you kind of have to roster him in some leagues. But if I don't have to, I don't think I have any shares of him.
Yeah. So Zadarius Smith is the answer there. So hopefully those two work out well. I don't like that starting Hassan Reddick, but I don't think that was us necessarily. I mean, hopefully the L'Jarius Sneed. I got you over 1 week. We'll take a couple weeks off, JJ, for giving you any bad advice. Hopefully, we'll see. Some other names across the IDP injury front. There's just pieces here and there. Like we said, the concussion situation affects everybody differently. We'll know more really. I think today's practice reports are out, and then tomorrow we'll get that finality for a lot of the guys. We did see Marcus Davenport return last night, but he didn't even get hardly any snaps. I don't know if that's shocking to you. I don't think it's really shocking to me necessarily.
I mean, I wouldn't say shocking. I mean, I might raise an eyebrow at it, but
there you go.
Shocking, I don't think. Marcus Williams is out, and I waited. I scrolled down to make sure you didn't have him as a fader play or whatever. But if you need a safety, I'd go grab Geno Stone right now, because he's going to be that he's going to be that Chuck Clark. Is exactly what he's going to be. Exactly what he's going to be.
Yeah, I was definitely let down by Kyle Hamilton. There's no doubt about that. That hurt pretty bad. Another huge name is Jalen Petrie is out. I think MJ Stewart steps into that role. That could be a player who really could step in and actually see enough, especially with that, that Indianapolis offense is tricky to figure out because it's Shane Steichen led. And last year, the Eagles were actually pretty generous to opposing safeties, if I'm not mistaken, just simply because they run, they get to the line fast. They do run a lot of plays. Anthony Richardson looked effective that first week. So maybe MJ Stewart's not a must start by any means, but in the deepest of deep leagues, it's a name that might be worth just considering. My 2 cents, at least. We'll see. I've been wrong. I thought Sidney Brown last night was going to be the stud, and I was wrong, man.
I was kind of shocked to see him not have more play, right?
Yeah.
But again, when you got a freaking defensive line and those linebackers like they've got, who the hell needs a safety?
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw a couple plays though, and I don't know. Forgive me for not knowing exactly who it was back there. I just watching the game. I didn't get deep into seeing who it was that had. There was some plays where Kirk Cousins looked off the safety and burnt the secondary deep. And I'm wondering if that's not something Sidney Brown's strength necessarily is coverage. His right. Strength is being able to do everything. But, when there's one mistake usually opens the door for a player, and a player like Sidney Brown, if you give him an inch, he'll take a foot as far as IDP output can be
right.
in my, from what I've seen at Illinois. But I think that rounds up most of the injuries there. Let's get into a little bit of, a segment we did last year, the Money or Mirage. I think that it's important to take a look at some of the IDP waiver wire moves. And if you and I both think that there's something that's going to be important for IDP going forward, as in there will be money, or are they going to be a mirage? Just simply, people that overreaction, I think, is another way of saying that. And so we'll start with the person it was going to be, and it was going to be used going into without the knowledge of last night. But let's talk about it. Ivan Pace Jr. I can't say money enough. We saw him just dominate snaps. He's been involved in pass rush, his productivity, his PFF ratings and rankings, and in every area was excellent. He's looking like the real deal.
The real thing, don't he? Yeah. And I want him to succeed as much as anybody, right? Because I've been working on this thing for a couple of years, trying to come up with like a little grading system for rookies or whatever. Anyway, So he was the highest graded in the class, this entire class, and it wasn't close, right?
Right.
I think there was some players like Caleb Murphy and the Farmer kid, but by far Power 5, NCAA, he was the highest. Kind of the same system that has predicted Max Crosby and a couple others. So, like I said, it's not done; it's just fine tuning it. But if you watch his tape at Cincinnati, he can do a little bit of everything, right? Kind of what he's doing in Minnesota. So, of course, it helps when you've got Danielle Hunter up there getting 3 sacks in front of you. So, but yeah, I like him. If you can go get him, I would do it.
The fab is going to continue to go up. I am. Yeah, I went to the wrong screen. The fab is going to go up each week as with playing time. I luckily have secured them a number of different places. Kings Classic, I got them for 6.5% of the budget. So I thought that was a pretty good investment and pretty good value there. So we'll see. Should I invest in Quan Alexander? 21% tackle rate last week, 69% snap rate. So maybe a little more efficient than what he should have been. Where's your takes on Quan Alexander fitting into that linebacking room?
I like it, right? I kind of thought there was an outside chance that something like this might happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know. And so to answer your question, getting out, it might be too late, right? Because everybody's kind of heard about Quan a little bit, especially for me. About maybe he could do it for 1 year, he could still do it, and I think that's kind of what you're seeing. He's catching lightning in a bottle. So if you got him during the off season, man, you're looking good right now, right? So,
Yep.
I mean, you could probably still find him maybe in a few leagues, shallower leagues, maybe. Um, I would say this: if you can get somebody overgrading him or overranking him right now, you can trade Alexander. I would do it, no matter what it is.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Like I said, I'd like to see more than the 69% snap rate, but that's gonna be hard because there's enough talent there, and they want to keep everybody, energy wise as far as on the field, and you get a good rotation at linebacker room. Most teams don't have 3 linebackers or at least 2 linebackers that can alternate in and out with their specialties and stay efficient like he was with the 21% is not going to happen. With efficiency, Drake Jackson is the next name. My 2 cents on him is I think it's more of a mirage. I know that there's got to be someone that's going to step up opposite Nick Bosa. But the only reason I say a mirage is because I think that if you pick him up with the intention to start him week in and week out, I think that can be dangerous. If you're in the deeper league, I'm fine because I think the volatility is going to be there. But here's some things, and take this for what it's worth. Last week, he had a 19% pressure rate. We know that's probably not sustainable, but it's a good start. Or was it Drake Jackson, or was it a result of the Pittsburgh O-line, who I said earlier was a little rough? Here's how rough they were. Of the 13 49ers pass rushers or players, let's just say that, who actually had a pass rush attempt, 8 of the 13 had a win rate above 20%. So everybody was effectively getting past that offensive line. So that just has me a little concerned. That also leads to the Zadarius Smith talker from earlier, thinking could be a long day for Kenny Pickett and company. But that's mine. Where are you? I think you're more of money on Drake Jackson.
I think so, right? I mean, funny because I had him in my stock market piece that I put out today on IDP Nation.
Should have read that, huh? My bad. Sorry.
I think he's money because, sorry. He was a backup all last year, played 15 games, right? Had 3 sacks on the year. And they've kind of been looking for that piece to put opposite of Bosa, right? That's the obvious thing. Well, that's kind of why they drafted him because they've got Armstead and those guys, but they're more like kind of interior. So I like him. Now he's not going to repeat 3 sacks every week, and that's just unrealistic. Low DN2, high DN3 right now, I think is where you should put him.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of getting into more of your hit miss week boom bust players, right? I mean, you're kind of at that position anyway.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I think that's where I guess I'm just being cautious and saying, hey, let's not get carried away with the idea that he's going to put up production like he did in week 1, which I don't think anybody's thinking, but it's good to have 2 different opinions on this situation. If
you like him, now's the time to go get him if you have to trade for him.
100%. There's no doubt.
Dynasty-wise, he's going to be a good player. He could be a 8-10 sack guy a year, and that's all you need opposite Bosa.
Yeah, the interior defensive line is solid. The team should be winning games, so we should have plenty of opportunities to attack the opposing quarterback. Let's, realize, yes, I was mistaken as far as this goes. I did choose Jalen Thompson over Hufanga. I think the interception for Hufanga was the biggest separator of the two, which comes. That's the thing with Hufanga. He is a splash play waiting to happen. Do you still feel that way this week? This week, I'm gonna say I'm torn because San Francisco plays against the Rams. I don't see a ton of offensive production out of the Rams personally. I think that it's going to be a San Francisco blowout, but Jalen Thompson against the Giants, what are we going to see out of the Giants? So start 2 out of these. You get Julian Love, Hufanga, Ryan Neal, L'Jarius Sneed, two loves. So I'm going to say if you could start Julian Love twice, I wouldn't probably do that, but I get the idea. I know what you're saying. What do you got?
I would if I'm starting two, I'm taking Thompson and Love.
Oh, there you go, Thompson. I'm sorry, JJ. Yeah. Okay. Hey, I still am fine with Jalen Thompson.
I mean, I like Hufanga, but like you said, the interception was kind of the key thing last week, right? So, and I think for Thompson and Love, the tackle numbers are going to be so high that it's the safe bet to go with him. In my opinion, you might be different.
Hufanga's is the question mark, man. That's just the hard one. I've been down. His usage to me is where I want to see I want to see week to week. And that's one of the areas that I was going to focus on is pay attention and just see what's going to happen. And maybe it's the same situation against the Rams as it was against the Steelers. You know, they get up big. They allow Hufanga to play a little more aggressive. He still was back at free safety. He wasn't up in the box nearly as much, but he did lead, the secondary in box snaps. Tayshaun Gibson was in free safety for 49 of the 57 snaps, or 63, I guess. And Hufanga was in the box for 12 of those. If that stays the same, I would like to see Hufanga more in the box. And maybe this is a situation. I'm long-winded in trying to get to analysis. This is what kills me on my rankings, because I do this. I go, okay, I think Dre Greenlaw doesn't play the whole game. So then if that's the case, maybe they move Hufanga up into the box a little bit more. But then again, they don't need to, because they're going to be up so much they can let him just roam in the back. So I'm going to follow along your
I would kind of agree with that if they didn't have Fred Warner, right? Like if Greenlaw was the one and he's out, then yeah, I would kind of see Hufanga being a little better play maybe. But you still got Warner, you still got those guys up front.
Yeah.
I mean, and I love Hufanga, but I just think for this week, those two are your better options, or at least that's who I'd start.
Yeah. And with Ryan Neal, to touch on one of the other players that you mentioned in that grouping, with Ryan Neal, I saw him and Antoine Winfield both play both roles. They were almost 50-50 in terms of box snaps and free safety snaps. So they were just alternating single high and one in, and then they would crowd the box. So that gives me a little more concern for Ryan Neal, because I thought he was going to be exclusively in the box and Winfield would stay deep a lot more than he did. And I'm not sure if I love that for Ryan Neal, because I think that he's a good player, but I was higher on him for his opportunities in the box more so than just him as a player. I like Julian Love more.
Yeah, but I mean, the volume for him went way up, right? I mean, going from Seattle to Tampa Bay, we think, or we believe that the early thing is they're going to be bad, right? This team's going to be bad. So,
yeah,
if that's the case, I think Neal gets a lot more opportunities in Tampa Bay than he would have in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, what a problem to have, this dude with his safety.
I know. That's
nice.
I would love to say it's because listening to the Shoot the Gap podcast and following the rankings over at Fantasy and Frames was the case, but I think that, JJ knows what he's talking about. Do you know what you're talking about here, Hollywood? In that, if you had to choose between Zadarius Smith or Harold Landry?
Smith.
Me too.
And I say that with a little reservation, not because I'm a Titans fan, but because Landry's got the better tackle potential, right? He's a 70-10 guy. So if you're getting some premiums on tackles at defensive end, then that kind of changes a little bit. So, but Zadarius, he's not the lead pass rusher like Landry is. He's the second guy behind Garrett. So, yeah, I think I go Zadarius this week.
Yeah, I thought it was ironic that of all the players, so we have Arden Key, who we talked about last week. with 8 pressures, Danico Autry with 7 pressures, Jeffrey Simmons with 4, and Harold Landry with only 2. Now, one sample size 1 week does not make the player. But I think that the Chargers, no Eckler, there's a good chance that we don't see that tackle upside that we can get, where I think that wide 9 with Za'Darius. So Za'Darius is the answer for me as well. Even though Jorge has Landry at 5, there's a reason why, hey, who do you trust? Do you trust number 1 and number 11? That's a low blow and a cheap shot. And Jorge, if you're listening, when you listen to this, I am 100% kidding. I would always tell people to listen to Jorge. That is not my intent. It came out and I heard it and I went, you know what? That is a jerk thing to say. He's gonna pull the plug shortly on this show. I can see that happening soon.
No.
Tell you what,
No, the fans have spoken. We're here. We're not going anywhere.
The fans have spoken, at least from what I heard in preseason, for this next player, and one that I love to see it. That's Derek Brown. Derek Brown has looked like the next defensive tackle to talk about. I don't know if you watched some of the snaps and some of the play, but he had Chris Lindstrom, the highest paid guard in football, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Atlanta Falcons, excellent guard. They split out on that wide 9 so many times with Brian Burns over his right shoulder or left shoulder, I guess it was. And he would attack Lindstrom and manhandled him on some plays. Derek Brown he's a problem for sure. Is he a problem that's going to be worth investing money in, or are you thinking that he's just another one of those defensive tackles that is going to be too volatile that might become a mirage?
No, I think he's absolutely worth investing in. Especially in a specific position league, right? Where you have to start D tackle. Oh, hell, you better go get this dude right now. I'm telling you. And he's doing what we thought he would do coming out of Auburn, right? When he came out of college.
Oh, yeah.
But we get so impatient, especially on IDP, that we give up on players when it don't work right away. And this is a perfect example. Those first couple of years, he had 5 sacks, which is a lot, but it was kind of hit or miss, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I think you go get him now is because I was looking at this earlier today. I almost started putting him in the stock market. And he had 67 tackles last year. I didn't even realize that.
I got to tell you, I didn't
either. So he had 67 and he had 8 in the first game this year. Is he going to have 8 tackles every game? No, he's not going to have 136 tackles on the season. It just ain't going to happen.
Yes.
So, but 75, 80 at this current pace, I would be okay with it. You're giving me 70 tackles, which is 3 more than last year. I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, he's getting a little pass rush. He's got Burns. Man, I love him. I've got him in a lot of places. I held on to him. I didn't mean to get long.
No.
There.
Hey, no, that's perfect, because I heard more talk about him in the preseason from a lot of the beat writers in Carolina, and I wanted to buy in, and so I did in a few spots, and I'm really, really liking what I've seen so far. We got one more. More. He wants to hear feedback on these 2. Denzel Perryman, CJ Mosley, Dre Greenlaw, Devondre Campbell, Devon Diablo. I'm going to give 1, and I want you to give me the other. If you agree with my 1, if you don't, you can give me 2. I'm going to throw in my 1 is Devondre Campbell. CJ Mosley is my other close one between the 2. But
Mosley would have been my first
one. Well, yeah, and that's fine. They're interchangeable for me. I think without Quay, Devondre Campbell seems like that.
Right.
But so so Mosley's your 1, who's your 2?
So Mosley's my 1. Let me see. Perryman, Mosley, Greenlaw, Campbell, Diablo. Yeah, I would go Mosley and Campbell. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's
especially if Quay's out, right? If he wasn't missed, then that goes up for Campbell a little bit. So
Yeah, and I have Campbell in my borderline LB1, LB2 conversation each week. It feels like, and without Quay,
yeah.
he's set. Greenlaw just worries me with the groin. Like I said, I will talk about him in a little bit. And Denzel Perryman, I think we just don't know if we love, especially by those other names. And Devon Diablo, we definitely like, but I think that you have a little more safety in those two. So CJ Mosley, Devondre Campbell. Your problems seem to be too many players. So just drop most of your players and you won't have to have these conversations and concerns every week. It's easy as that. Here's another name that I saw picked up in a couple spots. I was paying attention. Last year we said his name. I said his name a few times. Alohi Gilman, free safety for the Chargers. We know the linebacking core in LA is going to be weak this week. We know Derwin James is going to be everywhere. And we know we're going to be going most likely, I say we, like I'm on the team, but the Chargers will be going up against a team that, they could stack the box against because Tannehill looked terrible. Sorry, but Tannehill looked terrible.
Oh, he's trash. Fucking garbage.
It was terrible. So do you think Alohi Gilman could provide something this week, or is he just a mirage that you should not run towards?
No, I actually kind of like this, right? For a weekly play, I think it's kind of the perfect storm, right? So Tennessee, if they get their head out of their ass and go back to running Henry like they should,
yep.
I don't know what the whole usage. I ain't getting into the whole usage thing, but anyway, if they go back to running Henry like they should, using Spears, it kind of sets up right. Derwin James is your big guy, but you don't really have that linebacker. So, he had 11 tackles last week, 9 solos. So, yeah, I could see Gilman doing maybe not that good, but I can see him being 7, 8, 9 tackles, with a high solo rate. I can see that very easily, and I think that's probably low end safety 2 range, I would think.
That could be interesting. I think that's a sneaky name that I just don't envision a lot of people starting him. But I think that at some point, it's worth noting that he could be the last man on your bench type name just to stash. We'll see. I've been wrong enough times. Trust me. Let's take a look into the crystal ball this week. Last week we had a couple situations that we did get some answers from that I was wanting to know. One of those, which was, will someone step up opposite Nick Bosa? And we got that answer in Drake Jackson. Well, David Ojabo, what type of usage will he get? And we saw that he was the most used edge rusher basically for that team, which was important. This week, I want to see a continuation of some things we saw last week as well. Like number one, Damone Clark, 76% usage last week. The question is that as a result when the blowout started to happen and started to get rainy, they took out LVE for a lot of the snaps. Damone Clark stayed in there. Do you think that Damone Clark can keep that 75% snap share going forward? Don't let me down.
I think so.
Yeah, there you go. You want to?
I'm just not a big Damone Clark fan, though.
Understood. I get it. Maybe and here there's a very good chance that I'm wrong, and I just want him. I want it to be so right that I will continue just to beat that drum. But we'll see if he continues to get 75%. Hey, that defense is playmaking left and right. Maybe there's too many playmakers. Maybe that means he'll be a volatile start. And if he doesn't get more than, if he starts dipping into the 60% here and there, then he's a drop for me. But until then, he's going to hang on that last little piece. Another linebacker who's hovering right around that same spot is Micah McFadden, 74% snap share. This is a Wink Martindale defense that is predicated on, high intensity pressures and blitzes. And Micah McFadden did that in college extremely well, better than anybody coming into the draft, if I'm not mistaken. And this was a match made in heaven.
Yep.
But do we think that, is 74%, let's say he has that, is 74% enough of a snap share for Micah McFadden to be LB3 relevant?
I think so. I think it's pretty close. Especially if he's going to give you 11 tackles. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's going to give you 10 plus tackles. That's absolutely good enough. Probably a little too low if that's the outcome that he produces, right?
Yeah,
And
I don't believe that's the outcome.
How bad was New York?
That was the worst game I've ever watched. I mean, the worst game I've ever.
That was yes, absolutely. That was one of the worst performances by an NFL team, period, that I've seen, and it's easily top 5. That was horrible, dude. Offense, they couldn't stick their finger in their ass. They were so bad.
No, exactly. They did that. They tried to, and Osa Odigizua and everybody else across that defensive line stopped them, grabbed their hand, and basically did it themselves. It was not a good performance, but I do want to see how McFadden looks. I just like the talent. I mean, at 6'2", 230, and with good blitzing upside, I just think that he's probably an LB 4.
Kind of another Blake Martinez in a way, though, right?
Hey, I would love that. That would be fantastic. I just want that, I mean, solo to assist.
Think about it. It's not far fetched, right?
No, it's not lunacy. Well, I think that people will hear that. They'll say, "Did I just hear you guys compare Blake Martinez?" And we will avoid, and we'll just bring up that he is better than Blake Martinez this year for sure, 100%.
Right.
What are your thoughts on David Ojabo and Dynasty?
Oh man, I love David Ojabo. Do you know how many motherfucking leagues that I have him stashed on the taxi squad or stashed on the IR?
Yep. Right here with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I can remember that draft. Was it the second round they took him? Or was it it was either the beginning second or third. I can't remember exactly. Not that is relevant. But I remember at the time when they took him, I thought that is like the
second
best
round
stash draft you could ever
yes.
Coming off injury.
And normally I don't do stuff like that, but I was telling anybody that listens, I was telling people that play offense only fantasy football, hey, draft David Ojabo and put him on your taxi or IR somewhere.
Yep. You and I both.
But yeah, I've got him in a ton of places.
Yeah, I was been waiting for this. I've been waiting for exactly what we saw last week is for him to, have an opportunity, actually see significant, and he had 36 pass rush snaps out of the 49 total snaps that he played, producing. Nope, I take that back. He had 28. I'm looking at Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
But 28 of his 37 total snaps. Now, did he do much with it from the perspective of the pressures? Not yet. I am more than happy. That was also, if I think, was he lined up against Tunsil? Houston has a sneaky above average offensive line. But yeah, so David Ojabo in Dynasty, if there's an available option to get him, JJ, go out and do so right now.
Right.
What else do I want to see? I want to see, I think that George Karlaftis looked really good. I think that he can take another step with Chris Jones added. Karlaftis was getting great pressure. Got his hands up, swatted a couple balls down. He's someone to pay attention to that could have some value, especially as each week progresses, for sure. All right, let's go to Detroit.
Karlaftis was taking that next step even without Jones, right?
I think so too, but I think that Chris Jones always just adds added value when you can have.
I can't believe y'all paid him for 1 year. Ugh.
It was the best deal the Chiefs could have ever had. I can't believe Chris Jones would agree to his agents would do that horse shit.
Yeah, but still, I mean, at some point, man, y'all got Mahomes on this. You've got some contract issues, so
we're good. We got plenty of money. Salary cap is fictitious. Salary cap is the mirage. That is the case to be made.
Just ask the Saints, right?
Just that. Hey, just keep on keeping on. And if they want to keep moving money around to make players available, I'm fine with that. All right, Detroit, take your pick. Who plays more? Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Barnes right now.
Yeah.
I still love Jack Campbell, and I think by midseason, he's going to be the starter. I thought he would have been the starter right out the gate, but maybe maybe Detroit's just trying to kind of see, go with their veterans, right? Go with the experience. You know, you pulled off a big win last week against Kansas City, so
Yep.
now where do you go from here, right? So, and if Barnes can give you 6 tackles on a TFL each week, then I think that's okay. But the only thing that made him good last week was he's efficient. I just told you 6 tackles, 4 solos in the TFL, and he only played 27 snaps, so 42%. He was a little less than 50%. So, and I don't know that any of their linebackers played a lot. Maybe Anzalone played more than anybody else.
61 of 65. So Anzalone played a ton, which is what we would expect again, unfortunately.
He played a lot, but I think immediately, I'm long-winded, sorry. I think immediately it's Barnes is the play, but I think dynasty-wise, long-term, later this year, beyond, it's definitely Campbell.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not quite sure what's going on in Cleveland linebacker situation. JOK is the only one that's even close to 80%. No one was at 3 down, every down. I'm not sure that's going to change any week. I kind of avoid Cleveland the linebackers. But let's go to Cincinnati, though, because the secondary there, they drafted Jordan Battle out of Alabama. Nick Scott got the majority of the snaps, but Nick Scott was not great. And the question is do you think Jordan Battle can, actually start to eat into some of that production or some of those snaps and start to work his way onto the field? Or is it too early to talk about Jordan Battle yet?
No, it's not too early. You're exactly right. Scott is not good. There's a reason that the Rams let him go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think just him being his 5th year in the league, I think he's got the little heads up above Battle right now, right? So,
right.
But if he continues to play the way he did last week, as far as NFL, that's not going to hold up, right? He had 11 tackles last week, but man, he's just not good. So I think Battle's going to start. It's kind of like Campbell in a way. He's going to start a lot of games because I think they have to have him out there. So. Yeah. And I think he's going to make the team better. Now, is he going to make some mistakes? Sure, most rookies do. It happens, but the big plays is where I think comes in special, right? And he can be consistent for them. So
yeah, and that game was just
I've
weird
got Battle
from the get-go. Yeah, I do too.
It was.
I didn't mean to in some of the spots, but I did because it was late and it was, shooting for the upside, and I figured.
And the value was there, right?
Oh yeah, the value was easily there. Yeah, which was shocking because,
right.
it's
I
didn't know who else, but you said the right word, value. And I think that we have a couple value plays in our plays and fades segment. So give me one of your plays right now for this week, for week 2.
Well, we just talked about him a little earlier, right? Derek Brown, especially if you're in a specific position league where you're likely getting premiums in a lot of those leagues. Man, he's off the charts right now. Plus, New Orleans, their right tackle, one of their offensive tackles, Ryan Ramczyk, he's already out. So I know Brown kind of plays more in the interior on the inside, but still, that's a lot when he's playing this good. And he leads the team with 8 tackles in week 1, which I don't think he'll do that again, but not consistently. But man, if you can get 5-6 tackles out of him a week, and maybe a TFL or a sack or a couple PBUs each week, man, I think he's easily D tackle 1 tier, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and like you said, Ryan Ramczyk, huge for them. They need Ramczyk. He was excellent last week. And at guard, Cesar Ruiz last week against Tennessee graded out as a 35.5 in pass blocking. That is just, they should be able to absolutely destroy Brian Burns and Derek Brown both could have monster weeks this week. There's no doubt. I talked earlier and I said about Caden Ellis, and that's one of my plays this week. I think sneaky, just LB1, LB2 upside. His familiarity with Ryan Nielsen's system easily slotted him right in. Week 1, he had 10 tackles, half a sack, quarterback hurry, no Troy Anderson. And I think that Green Bay, without the potential of Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, I think there's going to be a lot of that short to intermediate work to Luke Musgrave, A.J. Dillon. And I think Caden Ellis is capable of being everywhere. And don't be shocked if they don't try to, pressure Jordan Love into some mistakes and have Caden Ellis coming off the edge and actually having another double-digit tackle performance and maybe get another sack or a half sack and be I think an LB1 is upside. I would say LB 14 or 15 is probably where I'm going to end up having him. I'll tell you right now, as of now, he's my LB 18. And I think that I can move that up a little bit as time goes on, as I continue to improve. Who are you fading this week?
Man, Monty Rice. What a freaking break check, right?
Wow.
All off season, you let David Long leave in free agency, goes to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
You have no linebacker really, so you bring in Aziz Al-Shaair as your LB1. All off season, they thought, okay, who's the number 2? Oh, it's Monty Rice. Even I kind of thought it, right? I think he's going to get the first shot because he played 13 games last year, made 6 starts, 66 tackles, 4 TFLs. So the obvious elephant in the room, or what everybody predicted, was it's going to be Monty Rice, right?
Right. So that's what I thought.
I started watching that game Sunday, and I was like, I didn't notice it at first, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. After the first series, I was like, where the hell's Monty Rice at? And then I focused in, and I was like, damn, I'm not seeing this dude. So in my stock market, he's a liquidation, right? So I went back and looked. He didn't even play not one single defensive fucking snap. Not one.
That's crazy.
He played 19 snaps for the game, and they were all special teams.
That's nuts.
Sell. There is something wrong. I know Jack Gibbons is the Mike Vrabel guy, right? And I love Gibbons.
Mm-hmm.
But to go from what everybody thought was going to be Monty Rice, I mean, it was setting up itself, right? I mean, you couldn't write a better script. And then Vrabel's like, nope, boom, break check. Not Monty Rice. I don't know why or what, but if they was ever a stop sign smacking you in the face, that's it right there. So I'm fading him. I could see it if it was like 10 or 15 snaps on defense, but not to even get a single damn snap on defense.
Even if it's 10 or 15, that's not enough to even. He needs 75%.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he didn't even touch the damn field on defense, which is wow.
So JJ, is this Jeffrey Simmons or Isaiah Simmons because if it's Isaiah Simmons at defensive or linebacker over Zadarius, that's a weird one. Why would it be that? It's got to be Jeffrey Simmons. What the hell am I thinking? And I don't know if you look at my rankings, they're not 100% updated yet. They will be tomorrow. But yeah, I don't think that I like Jeffrey Simmons. I love Jeffrey Simmons as a player. I just don't know if I like this particular matchup, especially over Zadarius, especially like I said earlier about Pittsburgh's offensive line. If they're allowing win rates at that excessive of a clip, that's a no-brainer. So my fade, I've got 2 fades. I've got my careful fade in that if you have a better option, I talked earlier about Dre Greenlaw. He's been battling that groin injury all week. It's purely a fade based on the fact that I don't want, if I have an alternate that I consider close to Dre Greenlaw, which is hard because Dre Greenlaw in my preseason rankings and rankings leading up, he was an LB1 for me. I have him ahead of Fred Warner. But if you have that option to pivot to someone like a Caden Ellis or I don't want to start throwing a ton of names. I would probably start Denzel Perryman over Dre Greenlaw myself this week. And I know that's kind of spicy, but that's just because I could see it happening like this. I could see the Rams getting behind so far that San Francisco has it easy. They don't want to tempt the groin. Let them rest. Take him out in the second half. Fred Warner probably stays out there, and they're plenty good. And you end up with a 25 snap Dre Greenlaw, or he re-aggravates the groin. It's only a sit if you have an option that makes sense. Don't get too cute, and don't go out and think, all right, I'm going to start Quan Alexander over him, or, Ivan Pace would have been an interesting play, but I don't think I would have started Pace over him just because I wasn't 100% sold yet. So that's one. And then the second one is I'm fading Jordan Whitehead as far as everybody freaking out over last week's 3 interception performance. I think it's going to look a lot better on paper. It was a weird game. Josh Allen has been known lately to be a turnover machine, which sucks for Bills fans.
Yeah, but what a freaking weird game to have. Right?
Crazy.
3 freaking interceptions. Are you kidding me?
And nothing else. Nothing else. That was the, but that's the thing. That's the nature of the beast is you have to come to work and get ready. And so why Grenard so low? I haven't updated. I like Jonathan Grenard. I think he's more volatile than I like to give credit. He has weeks. We saw that last year. He would have weeks, and then Okunrakwo would have another week. I don't want to say that it's one specific reason or not. It's probably not fair to go into that deep. But I'll adjust them. We'll circle back. DM me. I'll take another look and make sure that I'm not missing anything. But Indy has done one thing well so far this year that I've seen in one game sample size is they're getting rid of the ball quick, short, little intermediate stuff, and maybe the tackle volume will be there for Grenard, but he is sack dependent for me, which is a great segue into you and I packing our lunch and going into sack lunch. Last week, both of us hit. Congratulations, Hollywood. Yours is only a half sack, though. You only got credit for half the sack, so you only get half the lunch.
Yeah, that was kind of bullshit.
It was. It was. I don't disagree. And I got the full sack out of Danielle Hunter, so I'm up a half a sack right now. I'm 1/17th away, or 1/15th, or however many weeks we do this from my Uber Eat meal. Who's packing? Who you packing in your lunch backs this week?
Yeah, so I was kind of looking around here, and I was like, man, who do I want to take for this week? Too bad we didn't both have Danielle Hunter, right? Because I think he's going to be the guy, right?
Monster.
So I went with Will Anderson, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got his first sack last week. Has a nice, juicy matchup this week against the Indianapolis, right? How could you not? I mean, early in the season, he had 6 tackles last week, 4 solos, 2 quarterback hits, a TFL, a sack. He was just kind of on it from the get-go. And I think he's only going to get better. So I think Indianapolis has their issues that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't typically take a rookie, but it's kind of Aiden Hutchinson. It's kind of Nick Bosa rookie years, right? I think Anderson's going to be just as good or better than those guys. So I think he's a special talent. So you got an inferior team. I think this week for me, it's easy. It's going to be Will Anderson Jr.
Gotcha. Hey, if I'm gonna knock on that Jonathan Grenard, that's simply out of just, I think, more of the skill set against Indy. I don't think the ability is quite there. Will Anderson is a freak, and I really love to watch just his bag of tricks. He has power rush. He can get you off speed. His hands look good, and I'm far from a tape guy, but it stands out when it's pretty easy. The thing that stood out on tape last week for me, if you're watching any tape, go to the Chiefs game against Detroit. Watch Aiden Hutchinson, and he was a monster. I think this week it's going to be those 7 pressures that turned into 0 sacks. That's going to turn into maybe, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and give my, yep. It's boom shakalaka. Boom shakalaka. Boom 2 sack.
Wow.
Performance out of Aiden Hutchinson. Seattle offensive line beat up. No Charles Cross. You have injuries or at least concerns across that entire offensive line. This is the Aiden Hutchinson 2 sack performance. I don't lose anything for predicting. It's just fun. Why not go on a limb? So Aiden Hutchinson, you have Will Anderson.
I like it.
Thank you very much. I like another concluded shoot the gap. Let's hope that these I guess answers or suggestions pay dividends for people, because there's nothing better than having people tell you A and B help me with this decision. And we're going to be wrong. I know that, but follow us for more information there. A lot of the information I got was courtesy of Fantasy Data. If you want to go over to Fantasy Data and subscribe to their content and use promo code Fantasy and Frames, you'll get 20% off their content. And hopefully what we'll do is this, answers that we give will help lead you to your championship. And what do you get when you win a championship? You get trophies. And if you go to Trophy Smack and use promo code Frames, you can get a 10% off the Wall Smack, which you can commemorate with your championship with a minimum purchase of $49. And, brag to all your friends. But Hollywood, it's been another wonderful week. I know, luckily, the good news is this: we have a short turnaround. We only have 5 days until we get to do this again next week. And we'll look back and see just how
can't wait,
how wrong or how right we were. So for Hollywood Titan, I'm Nate Markham. We will see you next week.
Later.